Hello, and welcome to Skepticus. This is my new channel. I guess this is a form of intro for me, and it's also a form of intro for the first series that I'm going to create as part of this channel. So let me just cover a couple of basics before we get out of this video and get into the meat of what Skepticus is. So first of all, let's talk really briefly about Skepticus. What is Skepticus? As you might imply from the name, because skepticism seems to be something that goes sometimes hand in hand with atheism, I am an atheist. And this channel is going to be largely about atheist ideas. Although I did also choose the name Skepticus because to me, some of the things I'd like to talk about are more than just atheism. Atheism is, at its simplest, it's an incredibly basic word. It just means atheism, no religion or no God. That's all it really means. In theory, you can be atheist and you can have any other set of personality traits or beliefs or political views, etc. But I do think that in general, skepticism is something that tends to come more easily to atheists because they're already in a mindset of taking something that is for many an established norm, an established truth, and that is the idea of God or religion. And they've already either chucked it aside altogether, or at least they are comfortable vigorously questioning these norms. And once you're comfortable questioning that, well, you can be comfortable questioning just about anything. So that's why the name isn't just all about atheism, but it's really more about skepticism, and maybe even if we were to broaden it even a little further than that, what I would call anti-establishmentism, meaning so much of our institutions these days are built upon beliefs, not based on facts, not based upon scientific inquiry, but beliefs. That includes our democratic systems, our educational systems, and of course, our religious systems. So if you're going to start opening up your mind to question everything, honestly, then really what you're doing is questioning everything about the establishment. So that is why this is called Skepticus. Why Skepticus? I don't know. I thought it sounded cool. Like I'm Spartacus, except Skepticus. I don't know. It seems like a cool name, but again, also I like the fact that it has an emphasis not just on atheism, but on skepticism, because cynicism is not something I aspire to. That usually means you're being a jerk. But skepticism usually means that you're being intellectually rigorous, that you are interrogating anything that is not already proven. And by proven, I mean empirically. I mean with facts and evidence. And I think that's a good thing. I think damn near everything in our society could handle at least a little more skepticism, and in some cases, maybe a lot more. Now, this is a YouTube channel, and one of the things you might notice if you've done some digging around in YouTube is that, there are atheist channels out there already, right? Why do we need another atheist channel? Well, I don't know if you do. Hopefully, I'm bringing something interesting Hopefully, I am bringing something interesting to the discussion. But yes, there are already some really great channels out there. I will put some links in the description. I do want to mention right away that one of the channels that inspired me to do this is called Genetically Modified Skeptic. The guy that runs it, his name is Drew, and he's brilliant. He's articulate. He's highly intelligent. He comes at things from a empirical but thoughtful perspective. And I find his content to be inspiring. So I want all of you to check it out as well. And I will hype him up on a regular basis. But of course, there are others. There are many others. And I will name check them whenever appropriate. I will leave links to them whenever I can. And I don't pretend that anything I do in this video, my first, or even in my 100th, will be half as good as theirs. I just hope that it is at least unique enough that it provides some value to the discussion. Also, I will tell you that even though YouTube has an interesting selection now of content providers who aren't afraid to delve into the atheist waters, the fact is that atheism is still something of an ideological backwater in our society. For every atheist channel out there, I can probably find you 100 Christian channels or religious channels or spiritualist channels or channels that purport to talk about anything and everything that absolutely is the opposite of atheism. So while there are certainly others doing this that have been doing it for a while before me and who do it better than me and will probably continue to do it better than me, I don't think by any means that the market is saturated with atheist material. But at a deeper level, why do we even need atheist channels at all? You may think, well, you know, if you're already an atheist, I don't need to watch videos about this. And if I'm not an atheist, then I'm not going to be converted by your channel. Well, this is not here to convert you or anyone else. I guarantee you that. And even if I wanted to do that, that wouldn't work. So that's really not what this is about. I wanted to make this channel because, first of all, I have noticed that there are a lot of biases and prejudices against atheists. And I would purport for almost no reason whatsoever when they do national studies and talk about the trustworthiness of people and ask people, how much do you trust this group or that group? And then they name atheists. Atheists often come down at the bottom of the scale in terms of how much others trust them, because there is this ingrained thing in society that they assume that if you don't believe in their spiritual beliefs and their God and their religion, then how could we trust you? I would argue it's almost the opposite in terms of who you should trust the most, but that's a discussion for another video. But there are a lot of biases and prejudices out there against atheists. I would say that in my life, it's probably one of the only times that I have experienced these types of biases and prejudices, because in almost every other aspect of my life, I have hit the genetic lottery. I am a white Anglo-Saxon, raised Protestant, straight man living in America. So there are very few times when I have felt bias. But one of the few times I have felt it, at least a little bit, is when it comes to atheism. Because in certain crowds, you just don't pipe up and say, hey, look at me, I'm an atheist. It's not the way to make friends and influence people. And even in areas where maybe they're more open-minded, they don't necessarily want to hear any talk from an atheist perspective. So I think that it's good to have these avenues online where people who might be interested, who might have doubts or questions in their own mind, they can come and look at these types of videos and they can come to their own conclusions and think things the way that they want to think them through. And if nothing else, I see these channels, again, Genetically Modified Skeptic and many others, for example, he often says that if you are an apostate in need, there are these resources. And I will not steal his phrase other than to utter it there. But I do like that phrase, because if you are questioning your beliefs, or if you just don't have beliefs, and that's religious beliefs, and that's fine, sometimes it can be hard to know where to turn. Where do you go with that? Because almost everything in our society is built around this assumption that one way or another you have religious beliefs. Now, in some areas, maybe those religious beliefs are only in the background of the conversation, and other times maybe they come right to the forefront of what you're trying to talk about. But religion can be thrust into your conversation at work, in your politics, even in your leisure activities like sports and games and social activities. So it can be hard sometimes to figure out how to process this information in a useful way. And it can be a little lonely at times to think maybe you're the only one out there, or at least the only one out there in the room, or the only one out there that you know. And it can be, I think, comforting to at least know that you're not the only one out there who doesn't just swallow all this stuff hook, line, and sinker. So that is Skepticus. That's why I'm doing this channel, and I hope you enjoy. The second part of this intro, I wanted to do this video as like a double duty, because I'm also going to be doing I'm going to do a lot of different videos on all different stuff. But the first series that I want to do, maybe I'll come up with a better name for it, but right now I'm just calling it Let's Read the Bible. And you may think, wow, that sounds boring as hell. I did not come to an atheist channel because I want to read the Bible. But I want to assure you, this isn't going to be your grandpappy's reading of the Bible. This isn't going to be the Bible reading that you received in Sunday school. This is going to be something of a little bit of a different flavor. And I want to do this for a couple different reasons. First of all, most people I know have never read the Bible. At least they've never read the whole thing. Almost everyone I know has read verses or chapters, or had it read to them, especially when they're in church. Most people have never read the entire Bible. Also, I'll mention briefly that even people who say they've read the entire Bible oftentimes haven't. I'm not calling anyone out in particular, but let's face it, it's one of those books where everyone, especially people of religion, want to say, of course I've read the Bible. Yes, I read it every day, and I've read it multiple times. And some of them are telling you the truth. Some of them are not. So I think it's very interesting to actually go through and read the Bible. It is incredibly illuminating what's in there. So why do I say that? Well, first of all, even if you have read the Bible, a lot of people who haven't read it in years. Sometimes they read it when they were in high school or even earlier. Sometimes they read it when they were in their 20s, and now they're 70. So very few people I know have read it recently. And whether you haven't read it at all, or whether you haven't read it recently, I think that can be instructive, because if you go back and read the Bible now, I'm going to take a guess and say that you might be surprised by what you read. Now, I don't mean if you open it up and read a verse here or there, like we all do in church or what have you. I mean, if you sit down and read the Bible from page 1 to page whatever the last one is, you might be surprised what's in there. Because, first of all, it's incredibly violent. And I'm not just talking about the Old Testament, but yeah, the Old Testament has a lot of that in there. You know, the God of the Old Testament, fire and brimstone, all of that. Incredibly violent. It is incredibly immoral. And yes, I said that specifically. The Bible, or at least huge chunks of the Bible, are specifically immoral. And you might be thinking, Adam, the Bible, even if you're an atheist, you might think, well, but the Bible can't be immoral. Oh, yes, it can. I won't get into all of that right now. We'll save that for the series as we read through, but there is a ton in the Bible that is not just weird, it is outright immoral. I am going to lay that out for you, one verse at a time as we go through it. There's a lot in the Bible that's glossed over, whole verses and chapters that are weird or have conflicting messages or we just don't understand the context of them very much today. So they just kind of get glossed over. Some verses some chapters get read over and over and over again because they're our favorites, or because they're part of the zeitgeist, or because they illustrate a social point that someone's trying to make. But then there's also other huge parts of the Bible that people just tend to kind of put over there. Like, yeah, we don't talk about that part of the Bible. Well, I think we should talk about even those parts of the Bible, because glossing over any part of the Bible is not helpful, no matter what side of the fence you're on. So that's another reason I want to do this. But most importantly, when you go through the Bible and you think about the way that it's perceived in our society today, it is tremendously warped by cultural perception. We have been brainwashed. Literally, if you're in America, and I'm speaking from an ethnocentric viewpoint here, so if you're listening to this from Saudi Arabia, you might have a different viewpoint. But if you're in America or another mostly Christian nation, you have probably been brainwashed since birth to hear things in the Bible and to just assume that those are normal. Of course it's normal. Of course it's acceptable. It's the Bible. Why would we question it? And yet, if you go back and listen to it and read through it with a fresh set of eyes and some fresh ears, it's amazing how freaking weird some of the stuff is that they talk about. And again, I'm talking about things that are violent, things that are immoral, things that just don't entirely make sense, things that contradict the ethos of Christianity itself. I mean, there's just so much in there that really makes your eyes pop if you think about it. It catches your ear and you go, whoa, wait a minute. I never thought of it that way. Because maybe when you read it, you were a teenager and you were at Bible camp and you just wanted to believe this. Like this was how you were going to get to heaven. Or maybe it was read to you by a parent or a grandparent, someone who loved you and someone who you admired. So of course you didn't question it. But if you just read through it, not in a cynical way, but just read through it with a fresh set of eyes, it's amazing what stands out. And I don't mean in a good way. So that's why I'm going to start a series, amongst other content that I want to do, where I actually read through the Bible. And of course, I'm not just going to read every word for word and just say, that's it. Chapter 1's done. Chapter 2. Of course, I'm going to provide my commentary. Hopefully, that's what's going to make it worth listening to, not just because you haven't read your Bible in a while, so read along with me. No, I think you're going to be amazed at what we find. Here's my final point on this. This is not an anti-Christian channel. It's an atheist or skepticist channel. But, of course, a lot of what I'll be talking about in future videos comes down to religion and specifically Christianity. And one of the things that blows my mind about Christianity is that any complaint that I have about the underpinnings of the faith itself are right there in the book. Now, there are things that I don't like about modern day religion or modern day Christianity and Christians, and some things I can, pick nits about, etc. And I can talk about current political climate and all of that. But it really comes down to what's in the Holy Text. And when you read the Holy Text, I'm always amazed by how it's right there. The things that I think are just wrong or questionable or make me wonder why anybody would follow this. It's right there. Or as I would say it differently, as atheists, we have the receipts. The receipts, we don't have to come up with these by praying for them. We don't have to make theoretical arguments about how your religion may or may not work. No, we have the receipts because they're right there in your holiest of text, the Bible. So hang with me. I hope to see you on the next video. I'm not going to do all the subscribe and like. I mean, you'll subscribe and like if you like it. That's fine. But I'm not going to beat you over the head with that. It's like the lamest thing ever on YouTube anymore. And quite frankly, their algorithm changes every 19 hours. So who knows what's going to make me come up in your feed or not. I mean, sure, subscribe and like if you want to. But hopefully I see you in the near future for some of these videos about going through the Bible in particular, and even about other subjects that I'm going to cover. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you again. This is Adam, and this channel is Skepticus.